All right. Welcome, everyone. Let's get started for tonight. I guess we are a bit late because it's so complicated to get into this building. And we didn't know how many of the 70 people who RSVP would actually sign up. I think this is a pretty good turnout for a post-COVID era. Maybe next week or next month we can fill half the room, right? Okay. I didn't know that we will have actually a proper talk today. So I was basically thinking I'll just give a talk about how to make some good slides, hoping that more people will make talks in the future, right? So, but then it turns out that there's a speaker actually. So there will be an actual programming talk coming after mine. And I will just super quickly go through this because I found this quite recently. And I think it's really awesome. And I want to share it with you all and maybe hopefully encourage one or the other to also maybe create some talks, right? Slidev. Oh, first of all, a little bit about myself. My name is Martin. I'm the guy who always spams you from the meetup.com emailing list, right, and organizes these meetups. My day job is CTO of the Artling. It's an online art gallery. We are like maybe one of the world's largest databases of contemporary art. And I'm also a committee member of the Python user group since 8 to 10 years or so. I can't remember. All right, so Python user group, I think everybody here knows that. Sometimes I give these slides for an audience that are not from meetup.com, but I assume everybody here RSVP because of meetup.com, so you all kind of know what the Python user group does. We are a registered society. Initially was founded to have the ability to have a bank account so that we can organize PyCon more easily and get sponsorship money. We have recently redesigned our website, so it's now powered by this Ghost platform, and there's now an actual membership page. So we changed our bylaws so that if you want to be a voting member of the society, you have to be a paid member of this society. But you can also just go to the website and see here it's $0. That's basically just like subscribing to a mailing list. And then whenever we have events coming up or conference planning or new meetups and so on, or when we release videos from our meetups on our YouTube channel, we will send very low volume emails to this email list and let you know what's going on in the Python world in Singapore. So you should consider subscribing to that. We want to kind of get away from Facebook and LinkedIn and Twitter and meetup.com. That's just too cluttered. And this is supposed to be our central source of truth, right? Also, if you decide to become a paid member, basically what our idea is that money goes towards your PyCon ticket. Once we have 100 paid members, we feel confident to actually start planning a PyCon again. After COVID, we are a bit scared, like nobody even shows up to the meetups, and we are a little bit scared to put in all the effort and money to organize a big conference. I mean, usually we have to come up with $100,000 or more. And then if nobody comes to the conference, we are screwed, right? So kind of this membership is almost like a pre-sale for PyCon tickets. Once we have 100 members, we will organize PyCon pretty quickly. We already have good venues, and it's just down for a call for speakers, basically. So yeah, that's the idea. So you're not actually really wasting money. It goes towards that PyCon ticket, right? And you're not wasting money anyways, because it motivates us to make even better meetups as well, right? Okay, and of course, all of you know our meetup.com page. That's why you are probably here today. Let's get to the actual talk. So I found this little tool called Slidev. It's not even made in Python or anything, but it's just awesome. If you want to use this, I would recommend to quickly read the docs, right? It's the usual stuff. It's not a lot. The important topics are probably what you can do with the Markdown syntax and what you can do with animations. So I would recommend to at least read those 2 chapters from the docs. And so let's see. If you want to create a presentation with this tool, what I would do is I would create a new Git repo on my local machine. I would add a README file. I would make an initial commit. I would create a repo on GitHub. I would push my local repo to GitHub. And then I will use npm init Slidev to actually install everything that this framework needs on my local machine. This creates a folder called Slidev in your newly created Git repo. And so you cd into that folder, and then you can run npm run dev. This starts a local web server, and then pops up in your browser immediately, and you can start coding. And whenever you save, your slides will refresh immediately. It's very, very responsive. This Slidev folder will contain a file called slides.md. That is supposed to be the file where your entire presentation goes in. And it already has a demo presentation in there, so it shows you what you can do. So you could just scroll down in Visual Studio or whatever you use to look what they have done. and you can compare, right? This is code, this is what I see in the browser. And but I usually delete everything and replace it with this. You would probably want to create a real background image that is meaningful for your presentation. Right? What you see here right now is a random one. So if I refresh this, it comes up with a new image from Unsplash, some collection. I was too lazy to make a cover image, so sorry. And then you would probably put your talk title here that then goes into the browser tab title over here, right? Okay. Then the first slide after this metadata is going to be your cover slide. So you just put a big headline here, maybe a subheadline, and maybe a link to your own social media or something like that. And you can already see this is Markdown syntax, right? So the one hashtag here means it's a headline, the big headline. And this is how we make links in Markdown, right? So this is the link text, and this is the actual URL of the link, which you will not see on the slide, right? Okay, so, and we have just seen, I have this about slide here about myself and about PUGS, and I use these kind of slides every time I give a talk, basically, if it's a PUGS talk, right? And I wouldn't want to, you know, remake these slides for every single presentation. So one cool thing that you can do is there's a pages folder, and you can put Markdown files into that folder, and then you can reference them like this. And then in these files, everything that we can do in the main file, we can also do in those files. And so then you can have like a sub-presentation spread out into different files. And so I keep carrying around these two about files into all my new presentations. I just copy it into the next repo, and then I don't have to worry about making those slides again, right? Okay. The light went off. Should I trigger the what? Okay, there we go. So every 10 minutes I have to do that. Okay. So another interesting thing is Slidev has this concept of layouts. The only real layout that I use is the 2 calls layout. So in the documentation you will see a whole bunch, but I think 2 columns is probably the only one that you will ever need. And so. Oh, I messed up the slide. There should be animations here, actually. Oh. Anyways, the problem is when you use the 2 calls layout, these bullet points would be touching this code example background, and that looks pretty ugly. So there is no margin or padding between the 2 columns, right? So here's another concept, because Slidev is Markdown, but it's also just HTML and CSS. So we can actually put a style tag in any of our slides and override whatever we want, right? So what I did for this slide, basically, I opened my inspector and then I check what is this column, and then over here I could see that there's a class name called call left, right? This is how I found out how the class is named, and I just said padding right 1em, and so now the slide looks a little bit better, right? So the thing with the 2 call layout is that so this is how we define the slide. Then here's the actual content of the left column. And then there's this special syntax over here where we say this is the split. And then here's the content of the right column. Easy peasy, right? All right. Okay, here events are actually working. Very often on your slides, you will have in Markdown lists, unordered lists, right? By simply putting bullet points here, and then you have a long list of stuff. And if you have a slide that has quite a lot of things, like the last one where I didn't want to overwhelm you, but the animations didn't work, I messed it up somehow. You can put these vclicks tags around the list, and then these items will show up one after the other, right? See here, I can press next, and then they show up one after the other, okay? Sometimes you will have a very complicated slide. Maybe you created a grid with CSS and HTML, and you have certain elements that you want them to appear in a certain order. Then you can say, okay, my slide will have 3 clicks, and you can give each element. So now you cannot use Markdown anymore, right? You have to really use HTML. But then you can say each click shall have a certain index. And so now you can see element 1 comes first, but then element 2 is the one at the bottom, and then element 3 comes later, right? So you can even give several elements the same index, and then they all appear at that click, right, at the same time. So that's pretty cool as well. The best thing about Slidev, and that's the main reason why I really wanted something like this, is syntax highlighting, of course. I've been making text slides for 12 years, and I've been making them in Google Slides or, you know, PowerPoint. And the biggest pain in the ass is code highlighting, right? I usually went to this website, Highlight Me, and then I paste in my code here, and I press highlight, and then I copy this. And when you paste this into Google Slides, it has the colors. Then I still need to change the font, and then maybe the code is so long that that it doesn't fit on the slide. Then you have to reduce the font size to like size 4 or something, and then it's also useless because nobody can read the code on your slide anymore. So Slidev basically, solves all of that in one go. So you basically just make the usual in Markdown, tick, 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 and this means this is a code block, and you say which language is it, and then you put your code in here, and here, this is how it looks like. And you can see there's already syntax highlighting. And you can disable the line numbers at the very first metadata slide. There was something about line numbers, which I have set to true. And if you don't want it, you just set it to false, right? Another very cool thing is that you can have this syntax here where you can highlight certain lines. So because usually you have a lot of code, but on this specific slide, you will only explain, let's look at this line of code or this block of code, right? Then you can say, I want to highlight maybe line 1 and 3 to 4. And you can see these lines are a little bit darker. It's not very visible here on this projector, I think, but line 1, 3, and 4 are full color, and the others one are a little bit more muted. That's super helpful as well. And another thing is, if you have a lot of code that doesn't fit, you can have a scroll bar here, which is super useful. For this, you need to hack a little bit. You need to define your highlights, and if everything should be highlighted, you need to just simply use all. And then the second element can be max height. And I set this to 100 pixels down here, just to demonstrate so that this doesn't fit into the box anymore. And then you can see there's a scroll bar as well, right? So this is really nice. The font is always big, no matter how large the code is. You can, during your presentation, you can slowly go through it and explain everything, right? And there are even here the little copy to clipboard. All right. Right, so that's there as well, because I do live coding quite a lot in my talks, and I always have to copy and paste from my slides into my code, and now this can speed this up as well. I just click that button. Okay. Images, I mean, it's just HTML, so you just simply use the image tag. You need to have a public folder, and I like to put an images folder into that public folder as well. So these links here are supposed, like assets, like static assets, are supposed to be inside the public folder, and then whatever folder structure and file structure you have in there, right? And then you can see here as well, it uses Tailwind CSS. So you can use all those awesome Tailwind classes to, in this case, I say my image is only 200 pixels wide, because by default, I think they will try to be full width, and that usually that means they are too long and you can't see the full image anymore because it goes under the slide. And M auto means margin left and right auto, so the image will be centered, right? And MT4 means margin top 4, which is a decent amount of margin to the element just before the image, right? Okay. Also, it has this magical stuff down here. For example, you can quickly jump to any slide. That's pretty cool. And, I need to click here. There is dark mode. I compiled it using dark mode. I think day mode is the default, but I think dark mode looks better. And there's this, so if you have slides where you want to explain stuff and it's quite complicated, you can draw and you can guide people's attention to certain things. And it even remembers this. So if I go back to the last slide, why is it not going back? Oh, wow. Okay, normally you can go back like this. It remembers these things. You can even now export it as a PDF, and these things will also be in the PDF. Or as you design these slides, you use these markers, and you build the slides like that. Then the markers are already in there as well. It puts them into a JSON file, I think, with lots of coordinates for all the strokes. And so yeah, it's pretty cool. Let's get rid of this. So delete. And if you run this locally, there's another icon where you can even edit your slides while you are looking at them. So you don't even need Visual Studio anymore. And there's going to be a sidebar popping up with the Markdown content. And as you type, the slide updates immediately on every keystroke, and also updates in your Visual Studio. You can see the updates in the file happening as well, right? Okay, so how do you publish this for free somewhere, for example, on GitHub Pages? First thing, there's a package JSON already in your project folder when you initialize Slidev. You have to change that, and it only has Slidev built by default. You have to add this. base, and then your repo name, right? On GitHub, I decided that my talk is going to have some repository name, and that's the name that you put in here. Then you run npm run build. This creates a dist folder inside your Slidev folder, which is all the HTML files that are needed for this. Then I move that dist folder one folder up into the root of my repository, and I rename it to docs. We will see later why. And then I add everything, make a commit, and push to GitHub. Okay. So, and then you go to your GitHub. Yeah. So we can see all my code is here. There's the Slidev folder, right? There's the main slides. So when I ran build, it created a dist folder in here, and I moved that into the docs folder over here. And now I can go to settings, I can go to pages, and then you say I want to deploy from a branch, from the master branch, from the docs folder. That's why I renamed it to docs. When you save, then like 10 minutes later, you can go to this link over here, and that's what we have been looking at right now. So then it's on GitHub pages, indexed by Google, cannot be DDoS attacked, I hope. GitHub probably has pretty good infrastructure, right? And yeah, so every time you push a new version of your slides and you ran the build command and replace the docs folder, 5 minutes later, it's going to be online as well, right? And that's pretty much it. All right. I hope that was new to some.